first book I'm reading for the Black Fantasy Reading Vlog is Bloodlight Magic by Liselle Sambury, and this is about Boya, who is a black witch in a family of black witches living in Canada, and she has just gotten her calling, which is a trial every witch must go through before they can become an actual witch and get her powers. But after failing her first calling, her ancestor gives her another try, and then that second trial that she has to do is fall in love with a boy and then kill him. Right? First thing, the very first sentence in this book: after years of waiting for her calling, a trial every witch must pass in order to come into her powers, the one thing Boya Thomas didn't expect was to fail. That's not true. From the very first page in this book, this girl has been talking about her calling and talking about how she's gonna be the first witch in 100 years in her family to fail the calling. Or she's wondering if her family is going to kick her out after she fails the calling and she doesn't become a witch. Or she's wondering how come she's the only person in her family, wondering what's going to happen after she fails the calling, or why everybody's expecting her to pass, like what if she fails. So the synopsis is chatting shit, because this girl was expecting to fail from the very beginning. She was like hoping to pass, but she was expecting to fail. So I don't know what the synopsis is talking about. I was expecting this book to be sci-fi fantasy. I thought it was like, would it be urban fantasy or contemporary fantasy if it's set in the real world but it has heavy magic elements? Yeah, so this book, for the people who are witches, there's like heavy magic, because you know they're witches and it's not just a little something you're chilling in the side, but it's not taking place in a fantasy world. It takes place in Canada. But it's also sci-fi that I was expecting. It takes place in currently it's like 2040 or something, and they have genetic modification, and they have implants that connect to the phone that overrides or hacks into your senses. So you have the text messages coming up in front of the eyeballs, and it's really cool, and I did not expect it. I didn't expect sci-fi in the first place, and also I didn't expect the futuristic sci-fi to blend into the fantasy as well as it did. I'm a little bit more than halfway, right? Boya lives, her house is a little bit chaotic, because basically every person alive under the Thomas family name lives in their house. It's weird, and I don't know what I would do in that situation, but I like the dynamic. This book was one of my most anticipated reads of 2021. I'm not feeling 5-star. Before, I'm at page 300 out of 446 or something. At page 250, I was saying, maybe it's a 3-star, because it wasn't bad, but I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I was. But it wasn't giving what I expected. But right now, it's between a 3.5 star and a 4-star, right? Okay, so I finished the book 2 days ago, and I finally have, first of all, a coherent summary and coherent review. So I'm going to give you a proper summary so you actually know what you're reading. We're following Boya Thomas, who is a member of a black witch family in Canada, who after experiencing her first bleeding must pass her calling, which is a trial every witch must go through in order to come into her powers. However, she fails. After convincing her ancestor to give her another chance, she gets a new task: kill her first love. Boya may have a hard time making big decisions, but she will do anything for her family. So, using a genetic matchmaking program that is newly released on the market, she is paired with Luke, who wants nothing to do with her, but who she must kill. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars, right? In the checkup before, I had said that the book had an unexpected blend of futuristic sci-fi fantasy. I was not expecting that, and I loved it very much. I also mentioned in my synopsis that Boya has a hard time making big decisions, which is a big thing throughout the book, and it's very important. And because of how much it's reiterated in the book and how big it is, it could have gotten very annoying very quickly. But I feel like Liselle Sambury did a very good job of perfectly explaining Boya's feelings and her struggles, and even with her family, just offhandedly saying how she's always struggling to make decisions and Boya is kind of feeling hurt. I feel like that whole situation was handled very well, and it wasn't annoying in the slightest. It makes so much sense. It can even be relatable to a lot of people, and it works very well for the story. The magic system, it was very simple, and the simplicity of the magic system, that was also very important to the story, and I feel like it was done well, especially with some stuff that happened later on. The romance, even though in the official synopsis and even in my synopsis, I mentioned how she has to go to the genetic matchmaking program to find her first love, who she's going to have to kill. So obviously the romance is supposed to be this big thing to the story. Actually reading the thing though, the romance was kind of secondary to the plot, and that is not a criticism because it works. The fact that it's kind of secondary to her, you know, learning to make decisions, to her thinking about her family, to her experiencing just her whole family dynamic and other stuff that's going on in the wish community. The fact that the romance takes a seat to that whole stuff, it works very well with the story, and it's actually very important that that happens, and I'm very glad it happened. And it didn't feel like it promised us something that didn't work out, or it didn't feel like it's leading up to the second book, and it didn't feel like, oh, we could have gotten more romance, because the romance that was there, it was done very well. And me, I was loving the boy and Luke moments. And if you're going into this book expecting a fantasy romance with like heavy on the romance, you're not going to get that. But yes, so I said I gave this book 4 stars. I highly recommend this book if you're looking for fantasy books or sci-fi fantasy books with very strong female black leads that have a strong sense of community, that have a simple but interesting magic system.
Hi, so we're not going to talk about the time between the last clip and right now. Like, the last clip was filmed in like November 2022, and we are now in February of 2023. But we're not going to talk about that. And what we are going to be talking about is Master of Jinn, which I finished in like also November of 2022. The story takes place in 1912 Cairo, and we follow Fatma, the youngest woman working for the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities, as she works to solve the murder of an affluent Englishman and his secret brotherhood. The murderer claims to be Al-Jahiz, the man who 50 years ago opened the rift between the magical and mundane realms, changing the world forever. Fatma must now defeat and capture the supposed Al-Jahiz alongside her girlfriend and new ministry partner. So I gave this book 4 stars. So I really like this book. First thing is P. Jelly Clark used history and mythology to create a beautiful background and a beautiful setting for this story to take place in, right? I love reading fantasy stories where the book has its logic embedded in the story and every little bit makes sense, even if it's like, even if you don't understand, and even if it's just a simple explanation, it needs to make sense based on the laws mentioned in the book and based on the setting and the story that Clark wrote. It was done really well. Another thing I loved in this book was Fatma and Siti, the sapphic relationship in this book. I was eating that up. It wasn't like a huge thing in the book, but their relationship was a pretty big part of Fatma's character and the story. Oh, I loved it. I loved them. So if you're looking for a black fantasy book with a great sapphic relationship, add a Master of Jinn. So even though I gave this book 4 stars, like, it wasn't a 5 star. So there are obviously details that I found lacking, or there was a small issue with, or whatever. There were small issues that didn't make sense. Like, I don't know if it's me, because I personally stopped taking history after grade 9 and I'm in grade 13 now. So were women allowed to work before they got rights? And I might be sounding so stupid right now, but in the book, Fatma went to university, like, and the course that she took was to get the ministry job, right? And she was one of the youngest people to go to the university to graduate and to become a ministry worker, and she wasn't the first woman to work there, but she was already working at the ministry before women's suffrage was granted, right? Is that making sense? But that don't seem right. Tell me in the comments if I'm just a fool and I'm just chatting shit. But there was also this scene, maybe in the last 15%, where something in the writing style shifted, and for some reason it no longer felt like a historical fantasy. It no longer felt like 1912 Cairo. It felt like 2020 Cairo, or I don't know. It just felt like the scene was written in a modern way. I don't know what it was, but there was just like a single scene where the writing just felt different, and it took me out of the story for a while, and then right after that scene ended, it was back to normal. And I don't know what happened, and I don't know how to explain it, but that scene just felt modern, and the rest of it felt like a historical story. But other than that though, I really love this book, and Hi, I'm back, and finally we have the review of This Poison Heart by Kaylin Barron. It is the last book I'm going to read and review in this vlog. So we follow the main character Bree as she struggles to control the mysterious gift she was born with. Bree can grow flowers from a single seed, with only a touch. When Bree's aunt dies and leaves Bree her entire estate, Bree sees and her mothers leave Brooklyn behind and move to the estate for the summer to live in the small town where Bree sees can finally let her powers grow. But with the house comes the mystery surrounding Bree's birth family. It also comes with an apothecary, a dilapidated garden, and another garden filled with the deadliest plants known to man. When strangers come to the house looking for elixirs and tinctures, another group comes with them. But this group is more dangerous. This group is searching for something that Bree's birth family has been protecting for generations, and now Bree must harness her powers to protect herself and her family. If you're looking for a slow-paced contemporary fantasy, this Poison Heart is definitely the book for you. I highly, even if you're not looking for it, even if that's not your thing, I suggest giving this Poison Heart a try because I loved it and you should trust me. So we start the book in Brooklyn and we're immediately introduced or given a look into Bree's personality and the family dynamics, the concerns her mothers have surrounding Bree's powers, but also the love they have for her and the way how they give her room to explore her power, even though they're kind of worried about her safety. I love the relationship between Bree and her mothers, mostly how involved they were in the story, because this Poison Heart proved that you can have a contemporary fantasy with a teen main character that still has her parents involved, even though she tries to hide stuff from them so they don't know every single thing. They were still involved, and it proves that you can have a main character moving the plot along without her parents being dead or neglectful, because from what they knew, they were there for her. And even like outside of the magic elements, like with her finding a new friend and them realizing that she has a crush on a girl, like they were there, and I loved the dynamic between them. I loved her mothers, they were hilarious, and they were also the mothers, their relationship was also really cute. I loved it. So this Poison Heart is the first in a duology, and then in this book we are just like introduced the beginning of a sapphic relationship between Bree and this girl called Marie, right? I loved it. When I read that book, I'm looking forward to the development of that sapphic relationship, because from what we saw, like from the development of the friendship in this book, well, from the beginning, Bree had a crush on this girl, and Marie was like, she was into her, and I was like, yes, I am into that. I like to see this. So in the second book, I'm looking forward to reading about the sapphic relationship between Bree and Marie. Also, this Poison Heart has the trope with one immortal character and a non-immortal character, but it's black and sapphic, so it's not Twilight. You know what I mean? It's good. It's actually good. Let me stop. I really liked how Bree's magic was handled in this book, especially the exploration or the hint of exploration of a magical community in the town. I forgot the name of the town. In the town that they moved into. In the second book, I'm looking forward to see her magic grow and the whole magical community expand, so we get to see more of that. Finally, the twist in this book was so good. That's all I have regarding liking, commenting, and subscribing. Do what you want. Bye.